Stomp, stomp, clap. There is a very good chance you just did that rhythm in your head without even trying. It's one of the most recognized sounds on the planet. Football grounds do it, school gyms do it, wedding DJs do it to get grandparents dancing. And here is the strange part. The song built entirely around that rhythm barely has any music in it at all. No drum kit, no bass line for most of it, almost no guitar until the very end. It was built on purpose to be the emptiest, simplest song Queen ever recorded.
To understand why, you have to picture Queen in 1977 watching their own audiences rather than performing for them. Brian May had started noticing something on tour. When the band played their older, simpler songs, the crowd sang along, stomped, clapped, became part of the performance. But during the newer, more complicated material, the audience mostly just watched. Brian found that gap fascinating and a little frustrating. Queen's shows were spectacular, but spectacle wasn't the same as participation. He started wondering what a song would sound like if it was built backwards, not written first and hoped to be sung along to later, written specifically so an audience with no rehearsal at all could perform it perfectly the first time they heard it. That question became the whole design brief for the song.
The answer Brian landed on was almost insultingly simple. Stomp, stomp, clap. Repeated. No chord changes to follow. No rhythm too fast to catch. Just a pattern a stadium full of strangers could pick up within about 4 seconds of hearing it. It's easy to underestimate how deliberate that simplicity was. Brian was one of the most technically skilled guitarists in rock music, and here he was designing a song where for most of its length he essentially didn't play guitar at all. The song wasn't a showcase for the band's ability, it was a tool engineered for one specific job, getting 70,000 people to feel like they were part of the show, not watching it from a distance.
When it came time to actually record that stomp-clap beat, the band ran into an odd problem. A real drum kit made it sound too polished, too much like a studio performance, rather than a crowd doing it themselves. So they stripped the drums out entirely. Instead, Brian May, Roger Taylor, and Freddie Mercury physically stomped on wooden boards and clapped directly into microphones, take after take. Then they layered those same 3 people stomping and clapping again and again, recording pass after pass of the same simple pattern, multi-tracked dozens of times over, until 3 men in a studio sounded like an entire stadium of people doing it together. The crowd noise on the record isn't a crowd at all. It's the exact same 3 people, stacked over and over, until it became massive. They built the illusion of thousands before a single fan ever heard the song.
Freddie Mercury's vocal came next, and it was recorded almost completely alone. For most of the song, there is no instrumental backing behind his voice at all, beyond that stomping, clapping wall of sound. No chords cushioning him, nothing to hide behind if a note wasn't perfect. That's an unusually exposed way to deliver a lead vocal, especially for a singer capable of the kind of vocal acrobatics Freddie was known for elsewhere in Queen's catalogue. Here, he did the opposite of showing off. He sang it stark, direct, almost like a chant being led rather than a song being performed. It suited the song's whole purpose. This wasn't written to impress anyone. It was written to be repeated by everyone.
And then there's the guitar, or rather, the almost total absence of it. Brian May, arguably one of rock's most inventive guitarists, kept his instrument out of the song almost entirely, saving it for a short, explosive solo right at the very end. That decision took real restraint. It would have been easy to fill the empty space earlier, to remind the audience whose band this was. Instead, the guitar arrives late, deliberately, as a release after minutes of stripped-back stomping and clapping. Brian built a song for one of the most technically demanding bands in rock, and its whole power came from what he chose to leave out. The solo hits harder, specifically because almost nothing else in the song does.
The song appeared on News of the World in October of 1977, deliberately paired on the same 7-inch single as another song Freddie had written for that album, placed back to back so the two would always be heard together. One built to bring a crowd in, one built to send them home. Early reaction was strong, but nothing about a chart position could have predicted what the song was actually about to become in concert halls and eventually far beyond them. Because a song engineered for crowd participation doesn't really prove itself in a studio. It proves itself the first time an actual unrehearsed audience gets its hands on it.
Live, the effect was immediate. Queen didn't need to teach audiences the rhythm. Within seconds of the beat starting, tens of thousands of people who had never rehearsed a single second of it were stomping and clapping in near-perfect unison. It became one of the most reliable moments of every Queen show, a guaranteed point where the entire venue turned from audience into performer. Freddie barely had to ask. The design of the song did the asking for him. Brian May had built exactly what he set out to build, a piece of music that erased the line between the people on stage and the people watching it. No other song in Queen's catalogue turned a crowd into a collaborator quite this fast. And it kept doing that, night after night, for the rest of the band's touring life.
What happened next, though, was something nobody at Queen fully planned for. The stomp-clap rhythm escaped the concert hall entirely. Football grounds picked it up first, crowds stomping and clapping along without any prompting from the band at all. Then it spread into basketball arenas, into school gyms, into wedding receptions, into pep rallies that had nothing whatsoever to do with Queen or rock music. The rhythm itself became detachable from the song, a piece of universal, wordless code for "we are a crowd doing something together." A song built to erase the gap between performer and audience ended up erasing the gap between Queen fan and everyone on Earth.
There's a specific irony worth sitting with here. Brian May is one of the most technically accomplished guitarists in rock history, and the song of his that travelled furthest, that reached people who have never heard a single Queen album, contains almost no guitar playing at all. Its power came from subtraction, not addition, from what three men chose to strip away, rather than what they chose to show off. Most rock anthems try to dazzle you with skill. This one succeeded by handing the performance to complete strangers instead. The less the band did, the more the crowd could do, and that turned out to be the entire secret. It's a strange kind of genius that deliberately gets out of its own way.
Decades on, the song's reach has become almost impossible to overstate. It's estimated to be one of the most performed and recognized rhythms in the world, embedded so deeply into stadium culture that most people who do it have no idea it started as a specific, deliberately engineered piece of songwriting. To them, it's not a Queen song, it's just what a crowd does. That's an unusual kind of success. Most songs are remembered as songs. This one got absorbed into the culture so completely that the song itself became almost invisible behind the ritual it created. Brian May didn't just write a hit, he wrote a piece of crowd behavior that outlived the need for anyone to remember who wrote it.
It's worth remembering, too, that this stripped-down anthem was born out of a genuine insecurity, not confidence. Brian had noticed audiences pulling back during Queen's more ambitious material, and instead of doubling down on complexity to win them over, he did the opposite. He made something almost nobody could fail to join in with. That's a very different instinct from most rock songwriting, where the pressure usually runs towards more, not less. Bigger solos,
more layers, more to admire. Brian May looked at a disengaged crowd and decided the fix wasn't to impress them harder, it was to give them something to do. That reframing is, in hindsight, the whole reason the song still works exactly the same way today.
Paired live with the song written right alongside it, the two became a kind of 1-2 structure that Queen leaned on for the rest of their touring career. One stomping, minimal, built for the crowd to perform. The other, soaring, personal, built around Freddie's voice of full power. Audiences learned the sequence instinctively after just a handful of shows, anticipating each turn before it arrived. It's rare for two songs on the same album by two different writers in the same band to end up functioning as a single unbroken unit for decades of live performance. But that's exactly what happened, almost by accident, out of one guitarist's curiosity about why some songs made a crowd move and others didn't.
Today, when a stadium anywhere in the world spontaneously stomping and clapping that same simple rhythm, almost nobody stops to think about where it came from. It's just there, the same way a rhythm might exist without an author, the way an old folk chant feels like it was never written by anyone in particular. That, in a strange way, is the highest compliment a piece of songwriting can receive. Brian May built something so functional, so stripped of ego, that it stopped being a Queen song in most people's minds and simply became a thing crowds do. The less ownership the song seemed to have, the more completely the whole world adopted it as its own. That was never an accident. It was the entire plan from the very beginning.
So, the next time you hear that stomp, stomp, clap rhythm start up in a stadium, a gymnasium, or even just a room full of people trying to hype up a birthday party, remember what's actually happening. You're not watching a crowd borrow a song. You're watching a piece of music do exactly the job it was built to do nearly 50 years ago. Brian May noticed a gap between his band and its audience, and instead of playing louder, he built a bridge simple enough for anyone to walk across. If you want to hear more of the real stories hiding behind the songs you already know, stay with us. There's a whole catalogue of them, and every one holds more than you'd think.